If you label that, if somebody says something that you find offensive, that means that you labeled that offensive, because not everybody that hears that is offended. Welcome to the Alpha Social Club. I am your host, Esteban. Thank you for joining me again. This is our post-Christmas post. I'm a little late this week because of the holidays. Before we begin, I want to start off by reminding everybody to visit the official website, which is at the ascpodcast.com, that you can get more info on me, on stuff that I'm into, just so you guys can put a picture to the, or a face to the voice, I guess, however way you want to see it. You can also, under the contact page, you can also fill out the form and send me an email, and I would love to hear from you guys. And please leave a review on iTunes. I know it's hard to get people to do anything like that nowadays, but if you guys leave a review, I really would appreciate it. It helps the show's ranking and just kind of makes it a little bit more available to other people when it gets like a little bump. The more reviews that you get, something with the iTunes algorithm. I don't think I really fully understand how that stuff works, but if you guys leave a review and comment, I would greatly appreciate you guys. I'll start mentioning your names on the episode, give you guys a little shout out. So this is my post Christmas episode. I'm a little late this week. I apologize for that, you guys. I'm just still trying to keep true to the promise of weekly episodes. I got a little distracted this week with Christmas and all that kind of stuff. I'm really not big on like shopping. It's one of those things. It's definitely not my favorite pastime. I enjoy, kind of giving somebody a gift and kind of, bringing a smile into their faces and stuff like that. But I definitely don't enjoy the process. And I could have actually ordered online like a lot of people do and hit up Amazon. But it's just where I live, the streets, it's really close to a big street. So I've had stuff stolen before. I remember one time I accidentally left my girlfriend's keys in the front door. And when I went downstairs to kind of grab them and they weren't there, I kind of panicked a little bit and her car ended up being stolen from that. So, to this day, I don't really know how they did it. I'm sure they were probably looking at me. They already knew what vehicle was from what household, but maybe they just kind of grabbed the keys and went to where we all park our cars and hit the panic or something, or the open door to kind of wait for the click. But they ended up stealing that car, and it was terrible because I had to give my girlfriend that news. Nobody, I'm sure it's something that we have to experience once in life, right? We need to all go through some kind of sudden loss to be able to kind of appreciate it. I guess we take our cars for granted, and I've gotten my car stolen before, and it's definitely not a good feeling. But then you're not that confident anymore in leaving the car open and just kind of going into the store freely. You start developing little habits that make it harder for these guys, to steal your car. And it's definitely a good move to not leave stuff exposed as well, where they can just, crack a window and away they go, So that happened. So they steal a lot of packages here. So I'm like, what? I'm not even going to risk that. I know there was a video circulating that went viral of this ex-NASA engineer that created this little concoction that would kind of release a bunch of glitter everywhere, but I think I heard or read somewhere that it ended up being a hoax, that it was just like something that was already planned. But either way, it's still a really good video. And it's crazy how the internet works, because somebody releases something like that, and then all of a sudden people start making memes about your stuff getting stolen. And one of the good ones that I saw this week was somebody said a good way to get rid of your old shit is just to put stuff you don't want in Amazon boxes and leave them in your front porch. I thought that was pretty clever, because it would make sense that it would work, So I ended up, just grabbing. I'm a really quick shopper. I kind of already figure out what people might want, and I don't really procrastinate and try to grab a few items in the store and figure out what they would want. I just kind of go in and get out. So I got my two brother-in-laws. They're on the list as well. You start adding your sisters start dating and the family starts growing. So you have to give them some love too, you know. So I got a Lakers fan and a Chicago Bears fan, but the Bears gear even here in LA was kind of crazy to buy. Like they had out of stock on Chicago stuff, and I'm like, damn, these people jumping on that bandwagon quick. You know, they were into the Rams last week, and now all of a sudden they're Chicago Bears fans. You know, so I ended up getting him another different kind of hat, which he really liked. You know, and so it was cool, man. We had at my mom's house. My sister just got a puppy, so that's always really cool to like kind of be around and stuff. So it kind of, sometimes I feel like, you know, we all get a little socially awkward, and then sometimes we run out of stuff to say, but with a puppy around and just kind of running around and being all goofy, you know, it's a great conversation piece. And you know, you start kind of asking questions about the dog and stuff like that. So it was really cool to spend time with Charlie. I was able to, we like to listen to music a lot. I don't know if it's just like a Mexican thing, or I'm sure everybody listens to music, but I remember growing up, music's really important in our culture. I remember growing up, like my mom would put certain songs on to clean the house, you know, so she had like CDs on basically all day, just singing and cleaning the house. I know a lot of Latinos out there can relate to this, and you know, it's one of those things where music's like really important. And, you know, it's funny, like now that I think about it, like the other day I came across a video on YouTube with a bunch of goth kids, and they were just like dancing like ravers and stuff like that. And I was like just analyzing that group, and usually those guys, once they get into like goth music or stuff like that, something a little bit niche like heavy metal or death metal, it's hard to kind of let them like listen to something else if it's not that genre, unless you're Hispanic, Latino, I should say. We, no matter how deep in the rabbit hole of like death metal or rock, and we started dressing in black, some friends that I have started wearing eyeliner and stuff like that. You know, they refer to it as guyliner, but you know, you still gotta bust their balls about it now and as adults. You know, but we go through these different phases where no matter how dark it gets, no matter if we're wearing makeup like this buddy I have, no matter if we're wearing black lipstick, if we're black head to toe, we'll still be open-minded to some of those like songs that our parents used to clean the house. Like no matter how goth or how dark or how satanic we get, you know, if you put on a good jam with an accordion and, you know, stuff like that, it just takes us back. Or those romantic songs that our parents used to listen to back in the 80s and 90s, you know, Los Bukis, Los Yonix, Los Temerarios, stuff like that, you know, no matter how goth you get, no matter how black your lips are, you're gonna jam out to those songs. And that's the cool thing about being Latino, is that you're pretty open-minded when it comes to music, and I really appreciate that. So my sister brought on her little speaker, and you know, she likes to play Los Panchos, which is a bolero. If you guys aren't familiar with that kind of music, it's really nice music. They use it a lot to, like, you know, I guess promote romance. Like when you're trying to win a girl over or set the mood, you play some boleros, and it's kind of like Spanish guitar, a lot of acoustic stuff, and it's really cool stuff. So I just took the opportunity to just kind of play for them, and so it was really cool. I went on YouTube and I grabbed a bunch of backing tracks, some flamenco, some boleros, and I pulled out the acoustic guitar, and you know, I was jamming a little bit, you know, playing for them, and my mom was really happy. You know, she was walking by and she was like, "Oh, you know, mi hijo, this and that. You make me feel like I'm at a restaurant in Paris." I was like, "Mom, relax. This is from Spain, you know." But, you know, she's been to France, actually, so she might know more than I have. I've never been to France. But, so it was good hanging out with the family. She made tamales and pozole, which are traditional dishes that moms, you know, and aunts and grandmas and sisters, everybody, you know, and brothers, I try to help as much as I can too, but it's traditional dish that we eat, and it's good because it's a long process. You know, my mom put in some hours just to make the tamales, and it takes a long time to clean up some mess, you know. So shout out to the moms out there, man. You know, especially like my mom that pulled double duty growing up. You know, she was both the female and the male kind of role model for me, and you know, she set the bar pretty high because of that lady. I mean, when the friends that I have around me that are considered women, when I hear them complain about stuff and I look at what my mom and my sisters have accomplished, I don't know, she set the bar pretty high, and she definitely let me know that there's no excuse to not take control over the situation, which is something that's very difficult in our community. I know growing up, there was always the victimization of the culture is really big and strong in the Latino community. And it's very controversial when you just kind of have a different outlook. People don't understand why you think like that. But I had my mom, like a really strong role model that kind of geared me towards that mentality and made it pretty obvious that you are entitled to your future and you are in charge of your future, I should say. And don't let anybody take that away from you. And nowadays, it seems that nobody wants to, take control over their lives. I mean, it's easy to blame somebody else, and I've talked about this plenty of times, but it's very important for you guys to take control of your fucking life. Like, no, there's nobody's fault that you're where you're at right now. It's you definitely have control over it, and there's no need to blame other people for it. And it's something that's really popular nowadays where, I told my friend the other day, man, squeaky wheel gets the grease, but we're running out of grease, man. There's so many squeaky wheels going on all around us that it's hard to even kind of stand behind them and validate some of these issues or some of these movements, because it's like Mother Teresa said, don't invite me to an anti-war rally, invite me to a peace rally. You're still contributing to the negativity by showing a reaction or emitting a reaction. The frequency that you're emitting is still a reaction to something negative. So in my honest and humble opinion, all you're doing is adding to that negativity. And if you just refocus that attention into something a little bit more positive, it's definitely beneficial to your life. Like, shout out to my girlfriend. I got a really good person next to me that supports me 150%. Like, with everything that's going on with, people telling us that we have privilege that we haven't made and stuff like that. I have a really good partner that, she just kind of talks. We have really long talks, and she kind of just tells me that, she doesn't really fully agree with that. And that's why, we can have conversations of stuff that's pretty complicated, I don't understand why some of these guys argue with people out in the streets or on Twitter, somebody that you don't have rapport with. You're trying to be real about things. And these are the conversations that you have to have with the women around you and who's around you, because those are the ones that are going to understand and listen to you. Everybody else, they're easily triggered. They're not going to really try to take your side, and they're not going to take you not agreeing with them, very lightly. They're going to definitely be triggered. So no matter what you say, it's just going to add to the fire, and you're definitely better using your time a little bit more wisely and positive. So these are the conversations that you have with your girlfriend, with your sister, and with your mom. I mean, sometimes I have really good conversations with my mom, and, she still treats me like I'm a kid sometimes. And in her eyes, I'm still her son, her little son, I guess, because sometimes she calls me, by like what she's been calling me since I was a kid. And I don't correct her. I think it's really cool that my mom still sees me like that. But sometimes I talk to her because she's in a different generation. She's not really exposed to a lot of things that are going on. And then especially, Spanish as her dominant language. I see sometimes the news that she watches, and they seem to be promoting a different agenda than what the English kind of networks are promoting. The Spanish networks, they're still promoting kind of fear, but it's fear in different things. They do a lot of immigration stuff, and, they still have like a lot of outdated kind of material when it comes to like food. Like, if the times that I've seen her watch TV and they get into like health segments, I never see them talking about keto diet or intermittent fasting. They still think that fat's the evil and stuff like that. So it's a different world that my mom is in. She came from that old generation. Not to say that I agree with it, because I really don't. I'm more of a humanist. I believe that everybody's in charge of their life and everybody should take control over their life. But my mom's generation, the women definitely had it rough. I mean, she still comes from from the era where you don't have a divorce. The what the neighbor thinks and what the family is gonna say, it was really important in those days, and people weren't just getting divorces just because of this, having an issue the way that people do now. I mean, it seems like every time somebody gets married, and you hear later that they're divorced. I don't know if the divorce rate is still the way it was before, but it's definitely not working out the way it used to in those days. So what is it? I mean, people can say like, well, your mom just took a lot of shit, and she was a victim, which, yeah, I agree with you. She did take a lot of shit, but through the thick and thin is what they told them when they got married, and I guess it was literally through thick and thin. I remember my mom, she called the cops on my dad back in the 90s someday, and the police came like right away, and they arrested my dad, and they told him like, hey, the only reason that we're taking these a little bit more serious now is because of the OJ case. So apparently pre-OJ Simpson murders, cops weren't really taking domestic calls the way they did post, so my mom called the cops on my dad like a little bit after the OJ incident, and I remember him saying that's why they take it a little bit more serious now, because of the OJ situation. So there had to be something like that for people like my mom and that generation to kind of get a little bit more of a sympathy, I guess, from law enforcement to be able to investigate these crimes. And she took a lot. My mom took a lot from my dad, and my mom, she stayed with him for a long time, but it was definitely the best thing to do for both of them and for the family. Sometimes I kind of reflect back, and I think in retrospect that I wish they would have stayed together, especially when Christmas time comes along, because my dad's separated from the family, and he stays in Tijuana, which is a border town right over San Diego. So it's hard for him. He's getting weaker. He's getting older. It's hard for him to take that trek over to San Diego, where we usually kind of meet him at my uncle's house and spend time with him. So it's getting hard for him. I wanted him to come by and spend Christmas with me, and he was just like, "No, I'm too tired to go all the way over there." So it kind of I still want to include him in the celebrations and stuff like that, but it does make it a little bit difficult to fully be there for him. And I wish they would have worked out. And I know he sees it now, the regret that he did when he was younger, as far as abusing my mom the way that he did. But there's nothing that you can really do. Sometimes I even find myself lying. I don't know if any of you guys can relate to this, but sometimes I find myself lying to my dad, just so he won't think that we're having a good time over here and he's not included. He always asks me, how's everybody doing, if I talk to my family. And sometimes, I don't know how this sounds, but sometimes I lie to him and tell him that we haven't talked in a while, just so he won't think that he's missing out on something. I don't want him to think like, man, they're so united over there, and I'm over here, by myself. And it's difficult sometimes, and I don't feel good about lying to him, but sometimes I feel like I just don't want him to feel that he's being neglected. Like, he was able to hear us. He called Christmas Eve while we were hanging out, and I was playing guitar, and he called my sister, and he told her that he can hear me playing guitar. And so I kind of didn't make it a big deal. I was like, yeah, I was playing a little bit, but I don't want him to feel like, I should be there and stuff like that. And that's crazy, because our parents, they become our children, and they require more fucking patience than we did when we were kids. But I don't remember that far, so maybe we were fucking complicated the way they are sometimes. But they do become our parents, our kids, I should say, and it seems like a natural kind of path that we take, right? I mean, when we're born, they take care of us, and it makes sense that we take care of them when they're on their way out. I don't mind that. I think it's pretty awesome to kind of see your parents' insecurities at sometimes, because when you're a kid, you feel like they're invincible and that they know everything, and then sooner or later you realize that they're just humans. They didn't know a lot of things. Sometimes they lie to you, the same way I lied to my dad, telling him that we're not having a good time or we're not talking that much. I'm sure they lied to us too, because they didn't want to disappoint us the same way, with all that Santa shit and the Easter bunny and all that. they lie to us sometimes just so we won't feel crushed, and they do it out of love. So we do the same thing. And I think about it, like, it must be hard for them to like grow old and then to see their kids, kind of, to see them, get married or start their life, and they probably think like, man, who's gonna take care of me? Like, where am I gonna end up? I mean, if I'm lucky enough to get to that age, we're not guaranteed a long life, but if I'm lucky to get into my 70s or 80s, I just hope that my mind's still at a good place, and I can accept the reality that's in front of me, because stuff like this, like the holidays and stuff like that, people get really sad. People miss their family. I know people that are locked up, and it's around this time where they wish they kind of, I'm sure they have regrets over what crimes they committed to end up where they're at. But sometimes the holidays can bring that. You start kind of regretting some of the things and some of the actions that got you to where you're at right now. And so I think about stuff like that, and I wouldn't want to get to that age where I have regrets. I have to accept everything that's my reality at the time, and just try to do the best, because this is the awkward moment between birth and death. And I don't know how many chances I'm going to get. I don't really know if I've ever really fully kind of asked myself what's going to happen when I die. I really don't know. Nobody knows. I mean, there's speculations of people that have been in comas and stuff like that. And I really don't know what's going to happen. But I do like to live my life that, like, this is the last chance I have to change certain things that I've been dragging, for a long time in this life or in my past life. I mean, if I believe that we have a past life, then I guess I believe that there's something on the other side. I mean, when you think about it, when somebody gets eaten by a bear or they die a horrific death like that, our bodies, while we're getting eaten alive, our bodies kind of, they release adrenaline so we won't feel the pain. Our bodies are designed to when we transition, to feel as little pain as possible. Like, what does that tell you? That tells me that, there might be something that's a lot better on the other side, that we're just giving too much importance to shit that doesn't matter in this life, and we're not really just kind of enjoying the moment that we have right now, and know that we're going to transition into something better. Like, why do we release adrenaline when let's say a bear or a lion are eating us? Why does our body release adrenaline? Is it to not have our death, be of suffering? What's the purpose of it? Are we meant to just kind of easily transition into another life or another dimension? Like, why is adrenaline there? Like, why was it designed to be released in the moment where we need to not feel pain? The body and the mind are a beautiful thing that a lot of people don't really, appreciate. You kind of just take it for granted that we have ears that you're listening to this, or a brain that's processing the words that I'm saying, or, a body that's hitting forward because what I'm saying is boring. Whatever it is, like, it's amazing. It's fucking amazing that we can do the things that we do. And it's just a shame that, a lot of people are feeling like this life sucks and there's no direction and nothing they can do is good enough, I feel like that kind of mentality is when you try to please other people. Like, you're worried about being accepted. Who gives a shit if people accept you or not? Like, the question is, do you accept yourself? Are you happy with who you are as a person? And then that person is the person when there's nobody around. That person that might be scared or, hopeless. That's the person that you are to yourself, not to who you are with on social media or in school or at work. That's not the person that you truly are. That should be the only person that you should be worried about and pleasing and satisfying, and what that person thinks of you. If I'm overweight, I want people to accept me, and they accept me, but when I look in the mirror, I'm still a fat fuck. So what good is it for people to accept me if what I see still doesn't make me happy? You're more powerful than you think. You're more special than you think. You're more capable than what you think is possible. And that's one of those mysteries in life that not everybody's going to be able to understand that and take a hold of it. Not everybody is going to figure out their purpose in life. Not everybody's going to work at something that they love and they enjoy. Not everybody's going to turn their hobby into a business or just kind of their purpose in life. No, like, that's not for everybody. just like not everybody's meant to be a millionaire, not everybody's meant to be poor. I mean, it's just one of those polarities that you need one with the other. And that's what a preference is as well. You know, a lot of people talk about, like, they say that, you know, if you don't date a transgender person, that you're transphobic. I have an issue with that statement because that's just preference. You know, you could like black hairs more than, you know, brunettes or redheads. I mean, it's just preference. But in anything that you have a preference to, you're always gonna have, you know, something that you dislike. I mean, it's just the polarity. You know, if your favorite fruit is banana, there's a fruit that you dislike because you have a favorite fruit. If you have a favorite drink, there's drinks that you're gonna dislike because you have a favorite drink. But for some reason, when it gets into people, because we give a lot of fucking importance to us as humans, as people, when there's so much beautiful shit going on with animals and, you know, the stuff that those guys do without really requiring for people to like their Instagram. I mean, bees pollinating, you know, flowers and stuff like that. I mean, that stuff's amazing. How birds migrate, all that stuff. But we seem to give so much importance to fucking humans that it's crazy. It's ridiculous how much of that we get involved with, you know. And I kind of forgot what I was going with this, but the point is that, you know, if you have, I remember what we were talking about. If you have a preference for something, you know, it's polarity. You have to dislike something else. It's your preference. It's impossible to have a preference. It's impossible to have something that you find your favorite and not dislike or even hate something else. I mean, it's just it's just human nature. I don't understand why people give that so much importance. We're just humans. Like, we're not there's a lot of more special things that are going on around us than the entitlement that some of us give ourselves, you know. Just be happy to please yourself. You know, if you can look in the mirror and say that you love yourself, you know, that when did that become something that people that are vain are the only ones that do? Like, who gives a fucking shit, dude? If you love yourself, you love yourself. There's nothing wrong with that. You're not being vain. You know, that's the only way that you heard this shit your whole life. Well, how can you love somebody if you don't love yourself? It sounds fucking stupid when you think about it, but it's real shit. Because when you love yourself, you understand what love is. Unconditional love. Besides all the flaws that you see that you have, you still have love for yourself, and that radiates to people around you. You know, it's just a domino effect. This is one of those things, you know. But we give so much importance to what other people think about us and how other people accept us. Like, that's not what I want to talk about in the Alpha Social Club. And if you find this really offensive, or if this isn't what, you know, you need to hear, then I ask you to politely stop listening. I mean, there's definitely other platforms that might think the way you think, but in this podcast, I like to have more of a humanist approach to things, where I feel like it's our responsibility to change our reality. And we're the ones that label certain situations that trigger certain emotions. There's nobody else that labels something as offensive as yourself. You label that. If somebody says something that you find offensive, that means that you labeled that offensive, because not everybody that hears that is offended. That's the label that you give it. That's the importance that you give what other people say, you know? And I mean, I do truly wish you luck with that way of living. But as far as something sustainable, I mean, I'm really curious to see how that pans out, you know? But it's an interesting world that we're living in. I'm trying to dial in an interview with a gentleman that's a little older, mid 60s. He's really successful, and I kind of want to pick his brains to see what his generation thinks of millennials or people from my generation. I mean, I'm 36 years old, so we definitely experience things a little different. I mean, I feel sometimes that generation is also so out of tune with like what reality is nowadays that they wonder why people don't buy homes when it's not the same market as when baby boomers were in their 30s or 20s. I mean, it's a totally different market now. Who knows what's going to happen with our retirement, our Social Security? I mean, if you're worried about what somebody else is saying, but you need to fucking worry about your retirement and your Social Security. I mean, those are the kind of things that are going to definitely affect you and all of us. when we get to that age, and if we're lucky enough to get to that age, we'll see where life is headed. But every time, the bad news is always going to spread more than good news. I mean, nobody wants to hear good news. Nobody cares about that. Anything that happens can be good or bad. It's just the way that people kind of market it, the way that the headlines work. Because anything that you can think of, whatever angle that you see it, there's always a different angle to see that, If I tell you that, and I'm just making these stats up just for the sake of this conversation and this explanation, but if I tell you that, and again, this is all bullshit, I'm just making this up for the sake of this conversation, but if I tell you that 95% of people that go to Mexico don't get killed on vacation and they enjoy their vacation, if I tell you 95% of the people go to Mexico and have a great time and come back, you're probably going to read that and be like, oh, okay, cool. But if I give you the same stat with a different word, and if I say 5% of the people that go to Mexico get killed, you're going to read that and say, oh, fuck, 5% get killed. I don't know about this. I mean, we could die. So it's just the way that things are worded, but every single thing that's in the outlines has a different angle. And I'm not saying it's the right angle. Don't get my fucking words twisted. But all I'm saying is anything could be seen in different angles. And there's always different angles to certain topics, to certain agendas, to certain headline news. People see things totally different. And this is the kind of society that we're in, where somebody sees something and they get something different out of it. So it's always important to try to understand people, especially the ones that you don't agree with, because you have to come up with some kind of a solution to the issues. I mean, part of your job is to kind of see where these people are coming from. The Buddhists say to be understood, you first have to understand. Keep your heart open and keep your ears open, you guys. Let's try to fucking love each other. Let's try to pick each other up. Let's try to inspire each other, because at the end of the day, I mean, all you have is your community. All you have is the people around you. And you can set up whatever circle you want, of people like-minded, The goal is to have that, but just be super respectful to people that don't agree with your agenda or what you feel is important in life. And that's why we're humans. We all see a different side of each story. If somebody gets deported and they catch them in the border, people see that story and people have different perspectives of that story. Some people agree with it, some people don't. Some people overanalyze it. Some people create conspiracy theories. Like, there's so much going on that it's your job to kind of figure out what makes sense, and without offending people and without disrespecting anybody, because all it is people's opinions, and all it is people's reactions. And I'm sure you have other things to do that are a little bit more important than to argue with people that you never met. So I'm going to cut this a little bit short, you guys. I just want to tell you guys that I love you guys. I just want to tell you guys that, I really appreciate the time that you guys spend listening to what I have to say. Hopefully you guys can relate to some of these things, and let's start a dialogue. Let's start a community. Let's help each other. Please remember to subscribe and share. Visit the ascpodcast.com. Go on iTunes or Stitcher or any other platforms and leave a review. Please rate this podcast. Leave your review. I would really appreciate that, and I would want to hear from you guys. If it's nighttime, I hope you guys are having a good night. If it's daytime, I hope you guys are having a good day. If it's morning, good morning. Tomorrow's a new day. Peace.